A judge has now barred a Mankato couple from leaving rat poison in their yard after several dogs recently became sickened. We first reported that the residents allegedly left rat poison in their yard in an attempt to deter dogs from urinating on their property. Now, Attorney General Keith Ellison is suing the pair for allegedly violating state and federal law regulating the use of pesticides. Court documents confirm at least one dog consumed the open rodenticide block bait. Now the lawsuit has been filed on behalf of the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. The defendants are being civilly charged with failing to use the rodenticide blocks in a manner consistent with their EPA-approved label. These are civil, not criminal charges. Court documents say the poison blocks were scattered on the property without the required use of a bait station. Yesterday, the court issued a temporary restraining order requiring the defendants to, quote, cease any use of rodenticides in any outdoor area of the property and to gather all the rodenticide present in the outdoor areas of the property and place them in a concealed container inside the home on the property, unquote. They have 3 days to comply. Court documents say that the residents refused to cooperate with an investigator from the Department of Agriculture who visited their home. The court has now ordered them to allow an inspector to inspect the exterior of their property. Ellison's lawsuit asks the court to impose a civil penalty of $7,500 for each day of violation. The case will return to court for a hearing on a temporary injunction. The defendants have not yet appeared in court. It's not clear whether they have legal representation.